So I'll talk a little bit more about this in the context of fetal learning. We're able to test how well fetuses can learn from the environment by using habituation. So habituation is the idea that if you're seeing repeated instances of the same stimulus, you'll become bored with it, such that when you are presented with a novel stimulus, you'll your attention will be elicited, and the baby will be re-interested in what's going on. So developmental psychologists have used this in a variety of domains, but there are some famous examples of how habituation studies have taught us a lot about prenatal sensory experience, especially in the domain of hearing. So while with babies who are already born, you can measure where they're looking to sort of gauge their attention, but there's also a different measure that we can use, which is that when the baby sees something interesting, the heart rate decreases momentarily. So as the baby becomes bored with a stimulus, this decrease in heart rate eventually disappears. So the heart is staying constant when you're seeing something boring after repeated exposure. So one of these famous experiments is by Le Canway. In 1995, this experiment was done with 9-month-old fetuses who were just about to be born. And the experimenters put a speaker up next to the mother's body. They would play the same syllable pair over and over again. So the syllable was Babi. And they were able to measure the fetus's heart rate, which showed this typical decrease when the babies first hear the stimulus, and then as it's repeated, the heart rate would return to normal. So the test case was when they switched the syllable order to Bi-Ba, and with the idea that if the babies were able to detect this difference, the decrease in heart rate would reappear, and they would sort of snap out of habituation. Yep. I don't know, but it's just something that's characteristic of an elicited response to an interesting stimulus. Yep. That's a good question. I mean, in some sense, hearing is just detecting vibrations, but I guess you could think of it as with a weaker interpretation, which would be that they're just detecting subtle changes in vibration. I mean, I don't think anyone's arguing that babies are hearing in the same way that we hear, but the ability to discriminate between two syllables is essentially the same mechanism that we use when we discriminate between two syllables anyway, so it works for that. Okay. Yep.
I was wondering, what if that's sponge example, what if the situation is so displacement, and then maybe the baby is really bored of the usual amniotic fluid, and they might use the other sponges and all that more can be
yeah, so I mean, I guess you have a novelty preference, but I think in this case the familiarity is sort of a different. It's not in the same domain as seeing a new toy compared to a toy that you're bored with. I'm sure that there are other mechanisms at play when it comes to amniotic fluid. Okay.
The familiar amniotic fluid actually attracts the baby.
Yeah. Yeah. So the babies turn towards their own mother's amniotic fluid. Whereas, so with a standard novelty preference, it's been shown repeatedly that you present a novel object to a baby or young child will prefer that object over something that they played with over and over again. So it's a little different. Yeah. I don't know the details about measuring fetal heart rates, but I'm sure that there's a way to do it. Okay. So in a second classic experiment by DeCasper and Spence, pregnant women who were in the final 6 weeks of pregnancy were asked to read aloud, just as normally from popular children's books, for example, The Cat in the Hat. And after their infants were born, the experimenters put headphones on the infants, and they gave them a special pacifier that was that controlled which stimulus they heard through the headphones. So such that if the baby used a special sucking pattern, they were able to hear either the story that their mother had read in the womb or another story that was a control. And so the stimulus was contingent on the sucking pattern. And the experimenters found that babies, once they learned that they could control the stimulus, the babies reliably increased their sucking in the pattern that yielded the story that was familiar to them, the story that their mothers read while they were still inside the womb. So again, not only were they able to distinguish between the two stories in their own mother's voice, in their own native language, but they were able to recognize the familiar one and learn how to elicit that one, showing that they preferred that one as well. Yep.
Are these typically these very situations where showing that baby prefers to go back to this state or something that's trying to
No, I don't think that. I think that's a little strong. I think it's just about showing that they're able to draw on their experience from before birth and that they might develop some preferences that are stable. Yeah. Right. Yeah, but I don't think that people are arguing that babies are trying to recreate their experience in the womb. Although, perhaps with more evidence, we could get closer to that. In the back. I don't remember, but they were newborn, so it was presumably in the Spence experiment or the Casper experiment. It was in the final 6 weeks of pregnancy, so they were almost born. Okay, back row. So I think both stories were recorded in the same voice. So everything else was controlled except for the content. I don't believe so. Mm-hmm. No, the mother read the story because that's presumably the easiest way for the babies to hear. But I don't think the recordings were in their own mother's voice. It's showing that babies were just detecting the pattern. They had 2 stories. One was the one that they had heard before, and one was just a control. Because they were able to reliably change their sucking pattern on the pacifier. So if they sucked in a certain pattern, they would hear the story that they heard, and babies were more likely to do that once they figured out the mechanism. Yeah, I think if they did not suck in the desired pattern, they would hear something else. Okay, last question before we move on. I'm sure there are some studies out there, but I think the reason why we focus on the mother's one is because it's so easy for the baby to hear, since it's coming internally. So I think it's just for ease of stimulus. Okay, so let's take another explanation break, and so the second person now can talk about some of the evidence we have for the existence of sensory experience, and touch on habituation and what it can tell us about learning both prenatally and postnatally. Okay, let's come back. So one point of clarification is, so we're talking about why in some cases babies prefer familiar stimulus, and in some other cases they seem to prefer novel stimulus. So this is a point that people still disagree on in the field, but one way of looking at it is that sort of longer term familiarity is tended to be preferred. So things like mother's voice, your own amniotic fluid, comfort with interacting with family members, or having a favorite toy are things that might elicit a familiarity preference. Whereas within an experiment, hearing a new stimulus after maybe 5 exposures to a different syllable pair is more likely to elicit a novelty preference. So that's one way of looking at it. But I think the many questions on that point is more evidence for the fact that it's something that we just don't have a great grasp on yet. Okay, so we're almost done, but I wanted to end by talking about some of the hazards involved in prenatal development. So there are two major classes of these kinds of hazards, and one is maternal factors. So the mother's age, for example, is known to affect the baby's likelihood of being healthy. So mothers under 15 or over 40 are shown to be a greater risk for giving birth to babies with chromosomal anomalies, as well as a slew of other outcomes. The mother's nutrition, which we touched on, so if you have vitamin deficiencies, these are linked to low birth weight and increased risk for many disorders, including spina bifida. And aside from those, there's other environmental stressors related to socioeconomic status, and these can have an effect on the baby as well. But aside from the maternal factors, there are other environmental factors called teratogens. So two of the most common and widely studied of these are smoking, cigarettes, and alcohol use, with the former being linked to low birth weight, low IQ, hearing defects, as well as several types of cancer, whereas alcohol also has its own set of typical ways that it manifests itself. So there's a spectrum of typical retardation patterns associated with alcohol use on behalf of the mother, including some characteristic facial deformities, difficulty with social interaction, and general mental deficiencies. And this is due to the fact that fetuses are just really bad at metabolizing alcohol. So not only do they unable to metabolize it, but the amount of alcohol that they're getting in their system is very large compared to the size of their body. So alcohol and smoking and other teratogens are subject to what we call a dose-response relation, which simply means that the more the substance the baby is exposed to, the more likely the baby is to have to show an effect, and the more profound those effects might be. Yep.
Does caffeine, like coffee, count as a
I don't know. So the more repeated exposures the mother has, the more likely it is that the baby will show deficiency. So this is a case where the one-drop rule probably does not apply, in that 1 glass of wine during pregnancy is considered to be much less risky than repeated episodes of binge drinking. Although I should point out, doctors in the U.S. especially still recommend no alcohol use during pregnancy, just because the results are so widely variable, still considered very risky. Another point is that there are sensitive periods for these different kinds of anomalies. So you can see on each of these bars, the red bar shows the period that is most likely where a baby is most likely to be affected in a particular area. So this top one is the central nervous system, which, as you can see, extends almost throughout pregnancy, whereas some of the other body systems are affected for a shorter period of time. So the red bar shows a period that's most likely to yield profound deficiencies, whereas the yellow bar is sort of a lower risk period of time. So one of the widely known examples is the thalidomide crisis of the 60s. Thalidomide was a drug that was used as a sleeping pill and for relief from nausea and other symptoms of morning sickness for women. So doctors were prescribing this drug to women to take while they're pregnant, and unfortunately, it proved to have profound and devastating effects on their children. And in particular, women who took the drug during a window from about 4 to 7 weeks during their pregnancy were highly likely to give birth to babies who had severe deformities in their arms and legs. And the mothers who took it during other parts of their pregnancy were less likely to show those effects, which is evidence for the sensitive period. So this was a devastating crisis, not only for the parents who had to reconcile the fact that they actively, albeit unknowingly, contributed to their children's profound genetic anomalies, but also for the field of medicine and public health, which had to rethink some of the ethical and political repercussions of prescribing a drug that hadn't been properly tested yet. So this is, going back to one of the points I made at the beginning of the lecture, another way in which our understanding of development can be really devastatingly naive. There's still a number of disorders today that are believed to occur spontaneously or might seem to not have a particular cause, but I think examples like thalidomide show that it's possible that we just haven't discovered the mechanisms for them yet. And I think that serves as a point of inspiration for scientists and students who approach the study of development, because I think there's a lot to gain by better understanding the ways that we can contribute to healthy development prenatally and postnatally. So that's it, and we'll see you guys in section.